Thank you. So good morning everyone. Welcome to Melbourne on a lovely sunny morning. My name is Liz Camilleri. I'm the Executive Director of Finance and Commercial Services for Epworth Healthcare, and this year I've been privileged to be asked to chair the Health Leaders Forum. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today, the Wurundjeri and the Burong people of the Kulin Nation, and I pay my respects to their elders both past and present. I'm just acknowledging and thank you Jedox again, so Gareth and David, thank you very much for sponsoring the morning refreshments, and also just reminding people to put your business cards in for that lovely bottle of golden champagne that look very nice, so thank you very much again Jedox for sponsoring. I'd also like to introduce Gloria Selby, who's going to pop up in a minute. Gloria's a senior professional with a comprehensive finance, business and management background in the not-for-profit and primary healthcare segments. Gloria has agreed to join me as Deputy Chair of the Health Leaders Forum this year, so I'm very, very grateful to Gloria. Gloria is an extremely experienced Board Director and Advisory Committee member. She's dedicated to making a positive contribution to effect change in the healthcare industry, and her current roles include the Director, Deputy Chair and Chair of Community Engagement Committee at DPV Health, Advisory Council member of the Mental Health Complaints Committee and previous Victorian Divisional Council of CPA, and she's also a member of the Community Advisory Committee and Patient Experience of Care at Eastern Health. So just invite Gloria up just to say a few words. Thanks, Gloria.
Morning everyone. I'd just like to say what an honour it is to be asked to be Deputy Chair, and I'm looking forward to being good partners in crime, Liz. I'd also like to acknowledge the support that Victorian Divisional staff give us, and hopefully together we can move forward and provide more sessions like this, and we welcome you to also give us suggestions of what things you would like to hear about, and hopefully we can work together to provide you with leadership and thoughts about this healthcare industry. Welcome everyone, thank you.
Thanks, Gloria. So I think everyone's really excited about this morning's session in relation to robotic process automation. Certainly I am. It's something that I don't know an awful lot about. So I'm looking forward to hearing our speakers today. So just a brief introduction. The first speaker will be Sukalp Sharma. He's the CEO of Mindfields Australia and New Zealand. Sukalp focuses on enabling successful business outcomes for his clients by leveraging a range of digital and emerging technology solutions. He's passionate about automation, artificial intelligence and analytics, and he works towards finding fit for purpose and commercially viable applications of these technologies for his clients. Sorry about that. The second speaker today is Daniel. So Daniel Kennedy's Group Manager, Intelligent Automation Services at St John of God Healthcare, and as a Group Manager of this service, Daniel leads the team that manages all the intelligent automation initiatives at St John of God, and that enables the organisation to meet its strategic agenda. And thirdly, and certainly not lastly, we have Mohit. So Mohit Sharma is the founder and executive chairman of Mindfields Global. He'll be joining me on the panel at the end of the presentations for a Q&A session. Mohit's the founder of Mindfields Global, and a little bit about Mindfields. They're a global intelligent automation and artificial intelligence advisory firm. They provide strategic services. They have helped a number of Australian and global organisations, including ANZ, ING, Bravo, Equifax, Suncorp, Australia Post, St John's of course, etc, etc. So, you know, they've got a wide range of experience in this space, and I encourage everyone to, you know, ask a lot of questions and post the presentations. So I'll now like to introduce Sukalp to the stage to provide his presentation. Thank you.
Good morning everyone, thanks Liz. Thank you for a very enthusiastic participation for today's presentation. Over the next 20 minutes or so, I'll be talking about most things automation and artificial intelligence. And it'll be my endeavor to present these concepts simply, but related to the practical experiences that we've had over the last couple of years. Now, towards the end of it, I've set myself a simple test as well. I'm going to present, in the course of presentation, largely towards the end of it, 2 nerdy machine learning, artificial intelligence type jokes. And if they manage to evoke some sort of a chuckle or a tickle, then that means that I have conveyed the concepts across and have succeeded in what I set out to do. I'll be available for questions after this. I hope that you get something out of it. There's a lot to cover in the next 20-25 minutes, so there'll be slides which I'll be skimming over. My intent is to convey the key messaging, but I'll be available later on to discuss things at length. Some of the case studies that we have that I'll talk about are practical case studies which we have delivered at clients. Some come from the realm of the art of the possible that we will be doing shortly. So there's a lot of content in here, and let's get started. In the next 20 minutes, before I get started, so we'll talk about 4 distinct things. So in an audience of this size, there's invariably a good mix of those who have gotten their hands dirty with automation and those who are yet to get their hands dirty with automation. So I'll start with a quick introduction to what RPA is. We'll talk about the automation intelligence spectrum, which is starting with dumb or not so intelligent automation on the left-hand side to the artificial intelligence and very intelligent automation on the right-hand side of the spectrum. We will then talk about the impact of automation and AI on finance leaders and how it's particularly relevant in today's world. Then we'll focus on some case studies and use cases of these technologies in the healthcare space. And then finally, we'll talk about lessons.
Struggling a little bit to hear you.
Thank you. Am I audible now? Excellent. Did you get anything that I said? All right. It was a prologue. I'm going to talk about these things in a bit. We're going to conclude by successful lessons learned from our engagements that we've done over the last couple of years. And then there'll be some time for QAs, there'll be a panel discussion, so we have enough opportunity. So let's dig into it. Now, what is RPA? RPA is essentially a bot using a software program mimicking human actions through the user interface. So I get asked this question a lot. How is it different from other ways of automation? Automation has been around for long. But the key difference is that historically when you've had disconnected systems, which means computer systems that don't talk to each other, they were 2 things that were largely done. One was, start an IT project to connect those systems, or throw human labor or manual labor at it to make up for those disconnected systems. So you're making up for the fact that the 2 computer programs don't talk. Well, RPA addresses that problem. If you can only connect until a certain point, you can't connect all the systems all the time. It becomes financially unviable at times. So it replaces the human being on this side of the system as long as the process is rules-based and can be defined in a workflow. So that's the whole RPA advantage, that it helps relieve human beings of the menial mechanical tasks so that they can focus on more value-added tasks. As we go through this presentation, this concept will get clearer. But some of the other advantages of a bot are, because it's a bot, it doesn't have to go home, so technically it can operate 365 days a year. Once trained, which means once programmed, it does not require to be retrained. If it has been programmed correctly, then it will do its work with accuracy and be scalable. So you've trained one bot, which means you've developed that program once, then you can point as many bots in that direction. So it does not require, or other bots, when they get, the same script can be pointed towards other bots and they start doing the same thing as well. So there are a number of tangible advantages, and so this is just another way of saying the same thing. So how does RPA really work? It uses a computer program to perform a certain business process. It orchestrates around the legacy applications. What that means is, I talked about 2 disparate systems or 3 disparate systems. So it will put a layer around those 3 disparate systems. It will take data from one system, talk to another, just like a human being does, and it will eventually do the tasks that you want it to do. So how does a bot and a human being work together? Well, the bot does the labor-intensive, mechanical, repetitive, voluminous tasks, and which frees up the human being to do other activities, which is like change management, stakeholder management, taking care of the softer factors which get ignored normally because someone has to do the heavy lifting of the mechanical work as well. I won't dwell on the benefits, but the key ones are it is definitely cheaper than human labor. By some analysis, it costs roughly 1/3 of an onshore FTE cost and about 1/10 of an offshore FTE cost. Sorry, the other way around. So 1/10 of an onshore FTE cost and 1/3 of an offshore FTE cost. And there are some other benefits as well that increases productivity, reduces errors, or improves accuracy and so on. So these concepts will get reinforced as we go further. But how do you spot a process which can be automated? Well, we use what we call the Sniff test. So the idea is that if it looks like a duck, talks like a duck, walks like a duck, chances are it is a duck. So the 2 or 3 key things that we look for is, it is a rule-based and not judgment-based process. It has electronic data, which means the bot is reading from an Excel sheet or a computer digital data as against somebody's handwriting. And there's a defined workflow, which means you can pretty much, as a series of steps, write what happens after this step, rather than it being an ambiguous process. And then, if it's high volume, it will increase the business case, so high volume is good. And then obviously multiple systems I talked about. So some of these things, even if some of these things are there, it is a good candidate for automation. These concepts will become very clear with the help of this digital spectrum or automation spectrum. What we see on the left-hand side is what I refer to as a dumb automation, which is rule-based transactions, don't require judgment, and there is a defined workflow and so on. So this is where the industry has implemented a number of use cases and it's delivering benefits. So you'll find a lot of use cases that have been delivered on the left-hand side of the spectrum. This is also very quick to implement, so the ROI is really fast. Why? Because it does not require integration with your underlying computer systems. It connects, it operates at the UI level. So it basically mimics the actions of a human being who works on this side of the computer. So it's really quick to do. So we use some metrics. If it's taking more than 8 months or 10 months for an RPA process to break even, then it's probably we're doing something wrong. So we normally talk about less than 1 year return on investment or payback periods. Now, as we move towards the right, so it talked about intelligent automation. One limitation of RPA is it can't deal with unstructured data. So it can only deal with structured data, which means that let's say, what's the ABN number, so you can, as long as you can tag the ABN number to an invoice field, the bot will be able to pick up the ABN number. But if the ABN number is not where it is supposed to be, then that is unstructured data, the bot will fail there. So to do away with that, if you integrate a bot with some artificial intelligence capabilities like machine learning, like natural language processing, then you are able to make the bot understand unstructured data as well. So in other words, as we go towards the right-hand side of the spectrum, you are increasing the intelligence of the bot. It takes longer to implement, and that is where concepts like machine learning, artificial intelligence, natural language processing come in. Now towards the extreme right side, we have cognitive automation powered by artificial intelligence. So that's where some of the other AI technologies like machine learning and natural language processing and big data analytics come in. So if you look at the bullet points on the top now, so robotic process automation is rule-based and not judgment-based. It deals only with structured data, does not deal with unstructured data, and it does not have touch points across your entire technology stack. It just focuses on the UI level. As you go towards right, we are increasing complexity. we can deal with unstructured data by understanding or leveraging natural language processing, which means the ability for a machine to read text and interpret it and understand it, what that text means. So as long as there is ABN number written somewhere on the invoice, the machine will be able to say, aha, this is ABN number, so this is what my bot is looking for, and it will take that ABN number and feed it to the bot, no matter where ABN number appears on that invoice. We'll talk about these case studies in a bit. These concepts will become clear there. And artificial intelligence, this is where it combines other technologies as well. Like when you add machine learning capability or self-learning capability to the same example. So let's say we've combined an RPA, a bot, with NLP capabilities. So the case study here is of supplier invoice processing. So n number of suppliers have different formats of invoices which come to the organization for processing. An OCR solution reads it. The NLP engine there understands what text it is, and it serves it to the bot. So it will segregate where the ABN number is, where the invoice amount is. It will give it to the bot will process it, do what it is supposed to do. Let's say it picks it up incorrectly. Instead of the ABN number, the first time it picks up the amount. So the human being can go and tell, well, you picked the wrong field here, so we can go and correct it, and then so that's called learning or training the bot, and going forward it will understand that. So that's the ability of the machine to take a lot of data and then.
You dropped your microphone.
We'll come back to this technology spectrum or artificial intelligence spectrum in a bit as well. But the key takeaways from this are the complexity increases, the return on investment or the time frames increase as we go from left to right. There are a number of use cases which are working on the left-hand side. It takes longer for artificial intelligence and all these technologies use cases to work, but it is inevitable that these are finding their way into both the healthcare space and the finance professional space. When we talk about the case studies, it'll become evident. So I'll come back to this spectrum. I want to talk about three main things in the next section, which is impact of RPA and AI on the role of finance leaders. So we will start off with context. So this is a normal APQC classification of a finance function. You have managed corporate finance, routine transactions, and so on. What you're now looking at is what RPA is able to do to this. So the whole of routine transactions get taken away. So RPA is able to do a lot in the routine transaction space. It is able to do a lot in wherever there is reporting, wherever there is compliance, wherever there is reconciliation, Excel work, wherever there is routine transactions, and so on. So in other words, it helps create capacity. It helps or relieves the CFO, the finance function, or the finance leader from those labor-intensive keep the lights on operations, which are required to be done, but relatively create less value. It frees up the finance leaders and the team to focus on higher-end activities, like creating business insight, which they can then focus on because the bots are able to take care of the lower-end work. So, in other words, if I were to summarize that, how is RPA enhancing the roles of finance leaders? So one is because of process standardization and optimization. So when you are automating a particular process, invariably as part of going through the journey, we also look at what are different variations, and if the process is being done in 5 different ways, it's good to standardize it before the bot is automating it. So there are a number of ways in which these processes are standardized and optimized. Obviously there is financial benefit and ROI. Like I said, normally most of the times they break even within the first 6 to 8 months, which means the bot pays for itself in no time. There is capacity creation and employee retention. Now this is an increasingly important objective as well, and particularly more so in a lot of government organizations where we're doing it. the main objective is capacity creation. So they have some very senior people doing some rather ordinary jobs. In fact, one of the semi-government utilities organization where we implemented some journaling automation bots and some other bots, after the successful implementation of that, the sponsor said, I'm surprised and amazed that my people who I thought were not capable of doing this high-end work are now doing this high-end work. So, because the bots are now doing the lower-end work. So it has basically enhanced the profile of the same people in the organization. And then last but not the least, risk and compliance management. So if the bot leaves a perfect audit trail, so everything that it does, it gets captured, it leaves a perfect audit trail, it will do things accurately if it has been programmed accurately. And so it can, sometimes the drivers for automation are not necessarily financial monetary benefits, it's more compliance, doing regulatory reporting faster, more accurately, and so those objectives are met by this. Let's talk about AI for a bit now. So the left-hand side of the spectrum helps us with the routine transactions, helps create capacity, helps do the rule-based job. How is AI enhancing the roles of finance leaders? So in this environment of economic global volatility and uncertainty, the CFO and the finance leaders are obviously under a lot of stress. A lot of recent reports have suggested that the finance leader turnover has been increasing, so they're staying less at their jobs, so they're moving faster. AI has been helping them. So first of all, AI enables transformational automation. So not only does it take care of routine transactions, it helps create and adds value to the data inside, to the right-hand side of the spectrum as well. So once you've gotten rid of the routine transactions, you are now able to generate a greater insight using artificial intelligence and machine learning. So, that's one advantage. It helps predictive insights. So finance leaders are not only, they are able to answer questions like what happened, but they answer questions like what would happen if we did like this. So it increases their ability to ask more meaningful questions and deliver more meaningful insights to the business. Two examples of how it can help improve business transactions. So although some of these capabilities exist, but it is able to better reveal, for example, how excess cash can be leveraged for early payment discounts, and increases the ERP system's ability to monitor supplier invoices where there are early payments involved. So in other words, it helps finance leaders create more value for the business. The other points are these apps invariably involve connecting different systems. So both internal systems, moving those to the cloud, leveraging external data, and leveraging all the big data that is out there in the cloud. So it helps move away from, or organizations move away from silos or fragmented business units. So CFOs play, or finance leaders play a role there. The other point here is that because the AI apps require a larger return on investment, or the payback periods are normally longer, it is important to have more scrutiny on what gets invested or what apps get selected. So because finance leaders have skin in the game, they are also able to do reality checks on what other AI projects are being pursued, so that they can be in more control and be more accountable for what artificial intelligence gets selected into the organization. There is recent analyst reports which suggest that globally investments in artificial intelligence have been increasing at the rate of 55% per annum, year on year, and it's going to keep doing it. And chances are, if finance leaders get their act right, they will also be able to meet the requirements of the increased challenges and the role that they're now faced with in this environment of global turmoil or global fluctuations. All right, let's talk about a few case studies. Now, starting with a very simple one. So like I said, anything which involves reporting or anything which involves taking data from one system, validating it, running checks, running reconciliations, putting it into another system is a good candidate for automation. So we have done this for a couple of clients, and 100% of the tasks have been automated, reduction in resulting in reduction of processing times by up to 90%. And the more the volumes, the higher the business case in things like this. So statutory and finance reporting is a good candidate for automation and have been done successfully many times. This is the example which I gave earlier about invoice processing. It uses 3 different technologies. So the first technology which has been in use for quite some time is OCR. So an invoice is received, the OCR converts it into text. The second technology that is used is the natural language processing, the ability for the computer to understand that text. And the third technology that is used is machine learning, so the ability of the program to train itself over and over. So last 6 months of supplier data are fed to, supplier invoicing data are fed to the system, it understands, it learns, and we have the ability to reach it where the bot is not, or where the software is not picking up some data fields correctly, we train it, and the next time the bot picks it up correctly. And that gets combined with a normal RPA bot to automate your supplier invoicing. Now for large clients, the 80-20 rule applies. 80% of the volume comes from 20% of the invoices. So you don't have to automate all the invoices. As long as we even target the top 5%, we are able to relieve a lot of manual effort and direct those FTEs to hire and work. Transaction reconciliation. So this is another one which we did for one of our clients. So there was a huge pile of transactions which were not validated. So a number of roughly 1.5 million, if the numbers are right, transactions of unallocated transactions which had to be matched with the remittances. And so we were able to build a bot where the process was automated end-to-end. It extracted a report from the SAP system. It then went and checked against 3 different systems on the CRM system, the SAP, and so on, and took actions. And they were able to get away with or reduce that 1.5 million unallocated transactions remittances to a very small number now within a year of the bot in operation. Some of the other benefits of that, obviously the transaction time was reduced and the human labor was deployed to do higher-end works. Journals uploads. Now this is, a problem everywhere. So month-end journals, we completely automated it for one of our clients here based out of Melbourne, and 100% of the effort was automated. Not only is it happening faster, but it's happening completely automated without any human intervention. It has improved the accuracy of those journaling because under pressure, end of month, a lot of errors go into those journals, so it has done away with those errors for a great deal. So these were some examples and some use cases from finance. We'll talk about some more examples from the healthcare industry now, which is our third section here. So automation of patient billing. So we did something like this for one of our clients as well. And the process involves extracting the billing information from the client's whole system, putting it in Excel, doing a number of validations around that, and going ahead and raising the invoices. All of that, or most of that, has been automated with a very high accuracy. So it has resulted in the deployment or redeployment of a majority of those FTEs, and the original business case, which was supposed to break even within the first year, has probably been realized. Another one is, this is not one of ours, but processing healthcare appeals. So the client here is a healthcare coverage administrator. So they get a lot of appeals from customers, either regarding some policy they have or regarding some challenging some of their decisions. So they put a simple process in place where the bot will first extract the details of what the complaint is or what the appeal is. If it is a handwritten document, there is an OCR in play. So as we talked about earlier, and an element of machine learning where there is handwriting involved. and then it subsequently processes that information, uses machine learning to direct it to the right queue. Once it has understood what appeal it is, it directs it to the right queue for that appeal to be resolved. And then in each process, an exception handling workflow is there where a human touch point is required. So in case the bot is not able to read the handwriting or not able to process something information in there, instead of a failure, it will put it in the planned exception queue, so where the human beings can then take over. So that's the other feature about it. So if the bot is not able to automate 100% of the tasks, it will put those tasks in a planned exception queue where the human beings can then process it manually. Patient information analysis, it's another example or another case study here. So the idea is that if you have enough historical data about your health records, the bot, using machine learning and other artificial intelligence technologies, they are able to predict future ailments. And using that, if right interventions are proposed using prescriptive analytics and predictive analytics, when you combine those technologies, they are able to propose interventions which can change the trajectory of that risk. Now, if you scale that down one notch, this organization is using this technology for reducing the length of stays for customers in the hospital. So the bed turnover has increased, the throughput has increased. The patients are staying there for a lesser amount of time because of the proactive management and understanding and diagnosis of their conditions. And in some cases, completely obviating their need to be attended, thereby saving lots of money for the organization and the economic journey. So we've talked about a few finance case studies, we've talked about a few healthcare case studies. The common thread is that underlying technologies are still the same. So where we can find processes where the source of input is digital, where the process is rules-based, and where there is a lot of volume, we can apply the conventional RPA techniques. And where we take it a notch further, where it becomes judgment-based and so on, artificial intelligence, machine learning, natural language processing and understanding, it presents use cases where we can combine these techniques and technologies to fulfill. We did a report on AI in healthcare last year. We profiled around 93 or 9,200 different apps that are operating in this space, leveraging AI machine learning. This is one area of where AI is really, really booming. So we talk about artificial intelligence machines understanding and diagnosing cancer at a higher rate of accuracy than some doctors. So these things are going to get more prevalent as we go forward. In the interest of time, I'll move to the last bit, which is lessons learned from practical client experiences. So it's important to define the RPA strategy up front. So once we have tested the waters, once we've done a pilot, once we know what a ball looks, feels like, how it performs, then we need to understand and have a well-proven strategy. The example here is ANZ Banks. They were amongst the first adopters of RPA, probably amongst the biggest in this area. And recently, when their finance function decided that we now have to adopt automation in a big way, they said, let's work on a strategy as to how we will operate with a wider automation landscape in the organization, and defining our objectives as to what do we want to achieve out of this automation program. So some of their objectives were to be able to restitch some globally fragmented processes as a result of captives and get the bot to process higher amounts of volumes. Establishing an RPA Center of Excellence early on is good. What an RPA Center of Excellence does is, because RPA is a technology which sits somewhere between conventional technology, IT, and business, the ownership normally lies with business. However, for large RPA programs, it is very important for IT's role to be established and for them to take it on. And so it is very important to manage and navigate the stakeholder landscape. And defining what the governance structure is and how will the approval mechanism flow and how will the escalation mechanism flow. So getting some of those things and structures established is really important, along with the technical competencies and the method and the madness of how it gets done. So CPA, so for Center of Excellence, takes care of that. Deploying a fit-for-purpose RPA management platform is important, so NZ Bank adopted that as well. And so it helps manage the entire end-to-end journey of RPA, right from conception to production, helps automate the business cases, helps prioritize processes, helps select the right processes, helps look at risk, helps produce reports, and so on. So basically it takes the effort away from the managing of the entire automation program. Obviously, we should select the right processes, so do a lot of due diligence on selecting the right processes and not getting it wrong. And selecting a suitable implementation partner. Most organizations, it can be done in-house invariably, but it is important to get off to a right trajectory and get on the right path. So the initial proof of concepts or the first sets of bots should be done well, because that's when the penny drops and the organization decides to scale up. Obviously, maintaining focus on project and change management is really important, because we are effectively what we're doing is we're introducing digital workers in the organization. Most clients of ours, they have performance appraisals for their bots, yearly assessments, and then improvement plans done for where bots are not achieving their targets. The bots have names, the bots have managers, and they have user IDs. So they follow the entire life cycle of how an employee is onboarded in an organization. So introducing this digital workforce requires a lot of change management, and it has to be done well. And always plan for the next steps. So when we're developing, think of support. So some of our clients have done a very good job of putting good support plans in place, and so that it gets supported every time a bot goes down. So this end user experience should be seamless. Now, I want to come back to the spectrum I talked about. So if I were to summarize it, so what does it mean for us? So what is the so what for us? So if the current state is that obviously we do a lot of transaction processing, and we do reporting and compliance, and we do some amount of insights and actions. We want to do less of transactions, which means we want to expend less effort on transaction processing. So leveraging RPA plus intelligent automation plus business process reengineering and business process management will help us create capacity and do less or expend less effort on those routine transactions. And then invest or selectively invest in artificial intelligence techniques to basically enable data-driven intelligent enterprises. So to be able to do more of insight and action. That requires time, but the capacity that gets created by releasing or burden of routine transactions and focusing on that and leveraging the right AI apps to be able to do data-driven intelligent enterprise is where the future of finance lies. So, thank you. I talked about the two nerdy jokes. So I don't know, so a machine learning algorithm goes to a bar. Now machine learning, it learns from the data. It asks the bartender, what will you have? And the algorithm says, what is everyone else having? And this is a thought for us actually. So we're all hooked and the machines are learning. So that's the future we're looking at. The machines are getting smarter. Food for thought. Thank you.
Thanks, Sukalp. That was fantastic.